Okay, what's up, Egohackers? It is another wonderful Monday, and what we're gonna do today is we are going to be a reply girl to csjosephs.life, while I also draw more of the INFJ expressions. So let's pick a video to take a look at. CS Joseph has been pretty active lately. I saw like my YouTube thing was telling me that he actually posted like 7 videos in a week, which is pretty interesting. Let me see. What do we want to take a look at to start with? Your environment creates your mindset. Let me see. What role can 4 sides play in education? Who are you projecting? Whose legacy will win out? INFP and ISFP boundaries. ESTP and INFJ duality pairs. Okay, since we're drawing the INFJ today, let's watch INFJ videos. So let me start with this one. Good evening, Brian.
What's up, Egohackers? Welcome to the CS Joseph podcast. Today's episode, Season 14, Part 4, Episode 2. The ESTP and the INFJ romantic relationship. If of course you can actually call it that. If you could call it that. I certainly won't call it that. In my opinion, I think it's entirely a waste of time. An absolute waste of time. I'm really enjoying my extroverted sensing demon right now, because here I am smoking a cigar in the designated smoking area of a particular bar right now, and literally trolling the shit out of the patrons here as I literally record my podcast right in front of everybody like some weirdo dressed in black, and people are like, what the hell is even going on? But be that as it may, I'm still at least enjoying
it's time
one of
to
my
line
favorite
her.
cigars, a Laranja Escuro. So can't complain. And the weather is not too bad today, so perfect time to film an episode, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. ESTP and INFJ relationship. So ESTPs and INFJs have a special relationship with each other because they relate to each other a lot.
See.
And that's because they're part of the same soul temple dyad, basically. Hey, I don't know if you guys realize, but that guy that just walked by, he's got an electric coat and a logo that's turned on. He actually charges his coat. It's kind of a really fascinating situation. I am not that cool. Also, I endeavor to never be that cool, if you catch my drift. So, but anyway. It was raining. I wanted to sit on my favorite bench. Couldn't sit on my favorite bench, so I decided I'll just sit here. I mean, it's kind of weird that I don't have a whiteboard. I mean, I could literally just set a whiteboard right here and just start whiteboarding in the middle of the street, and people would be like, what the hell is going on? But hey, at least the sound's pretty decent. I'm not going to complain about that. Anywho. So yeah, they're part of the Soul Temple. Both of them have the same cognitive origin, and that cognitive origin is the cognitive origin of connection and the cognitive origin of intimacy. And when their cognitive origin is not met, these 2 types end up becoming the most lonely of the 16 types, which continues to be a problem on a regular basis. So, cognitive origin of intimacy, and both of them looking for intimacy. Just the thing is, just remember that intimacy is also known as the love language of activities. Okay, it's the love language of activities. We're slightly exploring love languages.
It's
just
actually
a little bit
very
in the context
pleasant.
of this particular series. The point is that while they're seeking intimacy and while they're seeking connection, the ESTP is the one that consumes intimacy and they consume connection. So, for example, if they get invited to a party They're always that person that just has to suck up all of the attention, basically. Whereas the INFJ wants to be the person who produces a reason for people to put their attention onto something, usually something that they themselves created in the process, right? It's one of the reasons, like, for example, my INFJX, anytime I would ever take her to a party and there's alcohol and they're making cocktails, she would elect herself the group mixologist, basically, the party mixologist, and then as a result of that, make cocktails for everyone. And she'd always try to invent some kind of new cocktail, and let's be honest, it was not exactly the best. She needed some practice, let's be honest. But as good lovers do, I basically humored her throughout the process. But the point is that the cognitive origin of intimacy and connection, it also means activities, or also known as the love language of quality time, but it's also just raw attention. And the ESFP or ESTP consumes attention, while the INFJ produces reasons for people to put their attention onto them or onto other things, basically, and they like to get credit for that, right? And because of this little dynamic, this is actually the main reason why types of the polar opposites actually get together. Because remember, folks, as we've talked about within this season, at least in the first episode, which was ESTJ and INFP, within the context of this particular season, we have this concept known as duality. And duality is this thing that can be understood like from a colloquial perspective. It can also be understood from a colloquial perspective, but also the actual true definition of what it is. And for the most part, duality, like in the true way, is actually technically the natural pairs, and that's why we have Season 14 Part 3 available right now to Journeyman members, right? And Journeyman members are available, or Journeyman memberships are available, csjoseph.life/members. You might want to check out Season 14 Part 3. We also have Part 2 available there. Now, if you want to get Season 14 Part 1, you have to get all of the Discover lectures, and that's like under the Discover All bundle, basically. If you don't know how to get that, it might actually be hard to find. So go to support, just email support@csjoseph.life, and it'll open a ticket and they'll help you so you can find it. But if you get the Discover All bundle, that bundle gives you Season 14 Part 1 for all the 16 types. It's 8 episodes, as well as the fabled hidden Season 19, which is the first lecture series they did on personal growth and like helping people reach enlightenment and becoming better versions of themselves. That's all available there. But again, since this is still Season 14, this is Season 14 Part 4. We decided to release Part 4 publicly to everyone because a lot of people just really don't understand this concept of duality, and everyone's like, oh, your dual is like the best. And well, if you actually consider duality in the perspective of socionics, where the concept of duality actually comes from, it really is basically pointing to natural pairs, which is what we have in Season 14 Part 3. However, colloquially, and when I mean colloquially, I'm like literally talking with famous people, Eric Strauss colloquial, like that level of colloquial, right?
I don't think that channel even exists.
You know what I'm saying? So
anymore,
because of that, that level of colloquial, most people assume that it's talking about polar opposite types. For example, ESTJ to INFP, and in this lecture, ESTP to INFJ. Now, there are multiple reasons as to why these two types actually get together in the first place. And in my experience, it's actually due to usually external environmental factors like organized religion, for example. These two types should never get with each other. They should never have a relationship, but they end up doing so because they're being pressured into it by like a familial construct or a religious construct or a church construct or a community construct, some type of social construct of some kind. And that ends up becoming like the main issue, right? So based on that, we don't really, it ends up creating like a ton of problems for like most people, So they end up in relationships where it's like absolute hell, and it's all because, you know, people basically pressure them into it. External factors of people pressuring them into it, which pretty sucks. It sucks a lot, and I don't wish that on anyone. I don't wish that on them, and honestly, like, I would try to avoid that whenever possible. But most people don't even know that they should be avoiding it. And that, too, is a problem. So, based on that, like, what does a person actually even do? Well, they have to kind of get away from those situations and get away from those social influences so that they're not so pressured. It actually kind of happened to me. I mean, I was pressured
Anyone in
by
your
my family
quadra?
to get married
Brian
to my first wife.
should
and that
avoid
turned out to be
dating
an absolute
anybody
total
in your
disaster.
quadra, and also
The thing
Templars.
is that oftentimes these relationships end up kind of being a little bit sustainable if they were virgins when they began, because they have no sexual point of reference. They have no idea that the grass is greener anywhere else, and that's ultimately how this ends up happening. But there's another psychological reason from a Jungian analytical psychology perspective. When we talk about cognitive origins, and cognitive origins represent the most important vector when considering typing somebody on the type grid, because cognitive origins is the one thing that just doesn't change. And, the order of someone's functions and their cognitive attitudes, their interaction styles, their temperaments, also known as worldview and expression styles, etc. Though quadra, all of that can change under cognitive transition circumstances, and to avoid that, well, guess what? You can.
Oh, I see.
You could look at cognitive origins, because
hang on, when this video finishes, I'll tell you.
It doesn't change. It's always the same, no matter what you do, no matter where you go. It's always the same. It's never going to change. It'll never change for like your whole life, right? So yeah, cognitive origins, it doesn't change. So if you can like detect someone's cognitive origin, you've just basically reduced the type grid down to like 2 types basically, and you've just revealed a dyad. Well, cognitive origin dyads, guess what? They're polar opposites of each other, and they end up being in this cognitive asynchronous camaraderie relationship that people end up being in, and it ends up being a waste of time. They end up being like really abusive, and it's a horrible experience, and I don't recommend it like for anyone. Like, I seriously don't recommend it for anyone. And it could be a bigger problem over time as time goes on. Definitely not my recommendation in any way, shape, or form. Stay away from these relationships. Why? Well, when you look from an octagram standpoint, sure, their cognitive origins are there, and most of you would be like, oh yeah, C.S. Joseph, could you like tell us, like, shouldn't it be okay for these 2 types to get together? I mean, look, the INFJ produces intimacy and connection, and the ESTP consumes intimacy and connection, so that sounds like that's like a really good fit between these 2 types. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it looks like that on paper, but in practice, it doesn't even work. The reason why is the optimistic to optimistic rule and the pessimistic to pessimistic rule. For example, extroverted sensing hero in the ESTP has to find an introverted sensing counterpart. Well, the introverted sensing that's available to the INFJ is introverted sensing demon, and that's naturally pessimistic. Ergo, the extroverted sensing optimistic hero can't link to the introverted sensing pessimistic of an INFJ archetype. It just doesn't work, right? So what ends up happening when the extroverted sensing hero imposes itself upon the INFJ ends up being cognitive transitioned into their superego to produce an introverted sensing hero within the context of an ISTJ superego. And being soft-locked in your superego ends up causing huge psychological damage, especially if the INFJ in question is subconscious developed instead of unconscious developed. It ends up becoming an extremely stressful and very abusive environment for the INFJ. Conversely, the same is also true of introverted intuition hero trying to be linked up to the extroverted intuition demon, of the ESTP. And that, too, ends up becoming a problem. And that forces the ESTP to cognitive transition into their superego to get extroverted intuition hero from ENFP superego, which oddly is the golden pair of the INFJ. And this process is known as soft locking. If you haven't figured out what soft locking is, go figure it out right now. It's in the December 2022 Cutting Edge Podcast episode in the Journeyman membership area. You have got to get educated. You have got to understand soft locking. Soft locking is the key to unlocking cognitive development and ultimately cognitive focus within the context of the octogram. If you want to understand octogram and how octogram tends to form inside of the heads of human beings, you need to pay attention to soft locking. So go watch that lecture so you can get educated, and go, because I go deep on soft locking. Not the surface stuff that I have here on the YouTube channel or on the podcast, as that would be a bit problematic for some. So, but the point is that both these types soft lock each other into each other's super ego, and it literally creates an insanely abusive environment for each other's egos. And they soft lock each other into each other's super egos, and it's like they're constantly triggering each other, constantly bringing out their super egos, constantly bringing out the most violent parts of their soul, the most sinful parts of their soul, basically. And it'll make them both unconscious focused like that, like super quick, unconscious focused, super quick. But then development starts to wane over time, especially as they get together. And slowly but surely, over time, maybe over a span of 10, 20 years, eventually both these types will end up UDUF if for some reason they actually stay together. But given that they have the cognitive origin of connection and intimacy, they're not going to feel connected to each other for very long. As a result, I can almost guarantee that one of these two types is going to cheat on the other one super quick. I mean, technically, statistically, these two types have the largest sexual body count of all of the 16 types combined, and because of that, it ends up becoming a serious problem. So I highly recommend avoiding this relationship at all costs. It's just so psychologically damaging to both people, and because they both mirror each other, they end up abusing each other, and then they mirror that abuse, and then over time, when they eventually transform into UDUF versions of themselves and have like insane depression and potentially, suicide, because, like, for example, if this relationship doesn't lead to cheating, it will eventually lead to suicide, basically. And that is an extremely bad outcome, obviously, because there's death involved. Death is on the line. So, again, I don't recommend it. Stay away from this relationship as much as possible. You want to be in a relationship with a natural pair, or a relationship with your golden pair, where you're being soft-locked into your ego, where your ego, for the first time in your life, feels accepted. These two types in a relationship, they don't accept each other. They will never feel accepted. They will crave acceptance like crazy, and that's ultimately what leads to the cheating. And if they're not even able to do that, then it will lead to self-destruction. It will eventually lead to suicide, because it'll be like, they'll just give up. They'll just give up on life. They'll just give up on themselves. Both these types are naturally nihilistic because they rely so much, because they are the most external of the types. They rely so much on everybody else and external validation and external reactions from other people that they can't react well to each other. But then if they feel trapped in this relationship and they still can't get that external connection from other people in their life, again, like I said, it's going to eventually lead to either cheating or to suicide. So seriously, avoid this relationship at all costs. Do yourselves a favor. Protect yourselves from this horrible outcome. So anyway, folks, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.
So it's going to be really hard to find, first of all, Brian, it's going to be really hard to find ENTP girls, just because ENTP girls are usually going to be a little bit more enabled in finding their comfort zones. So they're going to be more so homebodies than anybody else, or rather, more so homebodies than their male counterparts. They're not going to be out and about as much, and even if they are out and about, it's going to be pretty sporadic, because even though we do like to extrovert, we also like to extrovert very, very spontaneously. And then we go back into our caves and we recuperate, and we basically, I don't want to say recharge, because what basically happens is, like, we get energized from being an extrovert, but it's to the point where we get overstimulated and then we have to retreat and go back into whatever comfort zone we have. So ENTPs, because of that, especially female ENTPs, always mistake themselves to be introverts because they don't realize that the overstimulation is not the same as slowing down. It's more like being overwhelmed. I'm not wearing black. But yeah, typically ENTPs will be wearing black. So I mean, I want to speak a little bit to this as well. So what Chase was talking about in this video was ESTPs with INFJ couples. But I also want to talk about the idea of INFJs and ESTPs interacting in general, because this actually happened to two of my friends. They were two males, and they tried to live together, and one of them was an ESTP and one of them was an INFJ. So this is the ESTP, and this is somebody that was living with their INFJ friend, which was their subconscious. So the ESTP is probably like your standard bully. Like they embody the typical bully probably the most out of all of the types because of their SE, their high SE. So SE heroes, they point things out. They're always calling out reality for what it is, and they do it in kind of like a mocking way a lot of the time. They're big teases. They like to tease everybody and kind of like poke at them and see if they can handle it. And if you put that with an INFJ, if you know anything about INFJs, INFJs are very, they start off very self-conscious. They have a lot of performance anxiety, and they have a lot of guilt just innately. They don't even have to have done anything, and they'll be guilty about the fact that they didn't do anything. That's kind of how INFJs roll. They're just guilty all the time. And if you pair that up with an ESTP, I think it's kind of apparent that you're going to have some problems. One of the things that is going to be a general rule across any type is do not step on the inferior. Do not poke somebody in their inferior, or you're going to have a bad time. Yeah, apparently FI Child experiences guilt in its own way as well. My ISTJ roommate used to think that he was an INFJ, specifically because he felt a lot of guilt. So this is basically my friend Jake. He's an INFJ and he has SE inferior. So SE inferior does not like it when you tell them that their performance, which is SE, their performance is not enough. So SE inferior is always worried that they're not performing well enough. They always worry that they're not competent enough, that they're not good enough, especially in the physical world. So this is mostly an abstract type, but they want to be really good at the physical world. My inferior is gone. And this is an ESTP. His name is Jack, and his inferior function is NI inferior. And NI inferior wants to make sure that they have a really good future, but they don't know how to bring about that future without people's advice and people's assurance that they are going to participate in bringing about their future. And that's because SE users, SE heroes, like to share their experiences with people. They're not very good with no like they're a little bit better than most lower SE user types, but they're not very good at how their performances are being received. So if they don't know how their performances are being received, they don't know how they are going to achieve their future. Because in order to get to their future, they understand on some level that they need. Yeah, yeah, the performance stress is real, and it definitely goes for INTJ as well. So, in order to get the response that they need, in order to feel secure in their futures, they need to be getting the response, the reactions that they need to secure their future. So, what would happen is that Jack here would try to get reactions out of Jake. He would perform for Jake in little ways, not in the typical ways that you would do to male to female. It was more so that he was trying to get a response from him in his reactions. But Jake over here, his SI, his reaction function is so low that whenever Jack would try to get a response, he would get none. There would be no response. So, low key, SE Hero is not getting a response. It's like, how am I going to attain my future with this guy if he's giving me no feedback? So the inferior is getting triggered over here. And at the same time, his SE Hero, just by being an SE Hero, is like, hey, and he's not even thinking about it. He's like, hey, what's with that performance you're doing? Like, that's really weird. Why are you like that, dude? Like, what's going on? Why don't you know how to do basic things? Why don't you know how to pay attention? Why are you always spacing out? He's asking the SI demon, why are you always spacing out? And the SE inferior part of the SI demon is going, oh, he thinks I'm an idiot. He thinks I'm incompetent because I'm spacing out all the time. He doesn't think I'm good enough. And this type right here is always worried that they aren't good enough. So imagine these guys living together. I'll tell you about how long this lasted. Honestly, I don't think it lasted even a week. But the good thing about this is that these two are both interest types. That means that they know what they are getting out of a situation. Interest is always saying, what's in it for me? So when you're asking that question and you're not seeing any response from each other in any way, shape, or form, that means that you're just going to be like, you know what? This isn't for me. So I'm going to leave. And the ESTP was definitely the one to take that step. He was just like, you know what? I don't see this working out, so I'm going to move out. And we're just going to live our separate lives. They had a lot of similar goals because they are from the same quadra. They are SE, FE, NI, TI. So they have all the same functions. So they thought, hey, let's work together. But the problem is they are so incompatible that they couldn't get along like that. They were just draining each other. So they had to stop. And it was really hard for the INFJ because SE inferior has abandonment issues. So whenever SE inferior is, even if it's completely logical for somebody to dip out, they're just like, he left because I wasn't good enough. And that's why you don't want this kind of relationship face to face. They can be friends from a distance, but start putting them in an intimate relationship and a lot of feelings are going to get stepped on. That is definitely not something you want to do, especially when you're talking about a sexual relationship. So, I completely understand where he's coming from that perspective. At the same time, I don't think this would happen like under many circumstances. Like he's talking about the fact that they would eventually commit suicide if they were going to be together for a long time. I completely understand why he's saying that because when you are triggering somebody's demon function, which these two do naturally, because with any subconscious compatibility, you are going to step on people's demon functions instantly and constantly. So if you're stepping on people's demon functions, you are going to be subconsciously transitioning them into their superegos as much as they would love to fight that. It is eventually going to happen over a period of time. And if you go into your superego, you get very, very, very stressed out. And it's very unbearable to stay there for a long amount of time. Like a lot of people will claim that they're super ego focused. I would not listen to those people because if they're claiming that you're super ego focused, I personally would believe is like claiming that you're suicidal. I could be wrong about that, but as I understand it, that's what it is. Don't fight it, embrace the demon. You would have to be very, very, very good at your demon function, and even then, I think it would drain you. Like, the only way that I would access my demon function personally is through the reflector, which is the hero. Like, use your hero in such high regard that it turns into your demon and makes your demon angelic. It pops into my head from time to time. That does not surprise me, especially with you being an FI demon. That does not surprise me, Samwise. But okay, so what I was gonna say next was, and Samwise, you know a lot more about the system than I do. If it is possible, I would take your word for it, but would you agree that most people that say that they are super ego focused are not super ego focused? And while I wait for you to respond to that, I want to bring up to Brian here his most compatible types, and I'm gonna do a little art thing here as well. Let me see ego expressions. Well, that's not very nice. So this is the INTJ, and we're going to discuss what types would be most compatible for him for dating. So what you are looking for as an INTJ, yes, I love doing this. This is my favorite thing. So an INTJ is NITEFISE. So what this basically means is that you are very enthusiastic about what you want. So let's put a star for here. Responsible about the information that you take in, the thoughts that you take in from other people. You are very childish about your morality, meaning that you don't receive a lot of feedback from your morality. You are just very bullheaded about your morality. So what would be a good kind of thing for that? I'll put a square. And you are very insecure and anxious about your performance. So let's put a little dizzy for that. What that basically means, what you are looking for most is you want people to give you what you want. So this is going to be really important. And you also want people to care about how you feel. This is really important. You also, really important, want people to care about their performance you're giving them. I would say that your parent function can be kind of ignored just because it is a responsible parent function and you can manage this on your own. And this function, out of all these functions, is more likely to turn off than anybody else. Anything else, any of the other ego functions, you could probably ignore your TE the most. So, with that being said, let's bring out your most suitable suitors. So, I'm gonna start off with all the Crusaders and all the Philosophers because those are the people that you are gonna want to have the most. This is an ESFJ, and she is definitely a good candidate just because right off the bat she is going to be feeding with her FE hero. She always is wondering what people are feeling, so that is going to go right to there. The FE hero is always wondering what people are feeling and always wants to explain what it is you're feeling back to you. Okay. And another thing is that she has any child. So she is childishly telling you all the different options that you could possibly have while not thinking about her future at all. And she is also very enthusiastic about the way that you feel. Her parent function might be a little bit of a problem though, because she is very, very picky and very responsible about the way that she receives her experience. So the biggest problem with this relationship is that you are going to be criticized for your performance. That might be a little bit of an issue. The good thing about, actually, I don't know. Another issue with an ESFJ is that she is insecure about her thoughts. And you, as a TE parent, are very critical about the information that you take in. You're very responsible, but that at the same time, you're not just going to let anybody give you information. You're going to curate it. And her being insecure about her thinking might cause a little bit of an issue for you both. So she is going to be criticizing your performance, and you are going to be criticizing her thoughts. Or she's going to be very skeptical and very high standards about your performance, and she is going to be insecure about her thoughts to you because she knows that you have high standards when it comes to the thoughts that you take in. The perfect match, obviously, is going to be, and let me bring that up. Let's do the same thing. Wasn't a bronze pair very good? This example makes it seem like it's a bad idea. The reason that the bronze pair is a good idea is because it forces development. It's going to step on your feelings a lot, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because pain brings sexual tension, basically. So, and I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of each and every type because there is no type matchup without its cons. I'll get that right of the way. So this is an ENTP. It is NETIFESI. So this is super enthusiastic about the future that you want. very responsible with the thoughts that they produce, very childish about the way that other people feel, very insecure about the experience that they receive. So, yeah, Samwise said the same thing. The elusive ENTP, yeah. So, obviously, but I mean, obviously to me and people that are very familiar with the system, this is any hero. Any hero says, I am enthusiastic about the future that other people have. Anti-hero says, I am enthusiastic about the future that I am thinking of for myself. So any hero loves the fact that your NI is so high and the fact that you're always thinking about your future. That is very good and that is very energizing. Any of the hero functions, the hero and the child functions are the functions that give you energy, and as you can see right here, they match up perfectly. That means that this is a very energizing relationship. Not only that, our functions, our parent functions, are perfectly suited for each other because I am very responsible with my thinking and the thoughts that I produce, and you are very responsible with the thoughts that you take in. So this is going to be probably the biggest breath of fresh air for this relationship right here. You are like finally somebody that has very, very responsible and intelligent thoughts, and the ENTP is like finally somebody that actually takes in information responsibly. So that is a very good thing. This is probably the best part of the ENTP and INTJ relationship. This is probably the worst part of the ENTP and INTJ relationship, the FE to FI child functions. So this is our emotions right here. FI child is telling FE child how it feels very childishly. And FE child is telling you what you feel very childishly in a very childish way, explaining what it is that you feel. This can lead to a lot of issues whenever you have flare-ups, because when you start feeling emotional, I will start giving you emotional feedback in just a hectic and chaotic manner that you are. So while FI child is just completely off the rails and bullheaded about how it feels, FE child is also notoriously sadistic in the way that it pokes and prods for people's feelings. So while you're over here feeling chaotically, I am also poking chaotically to absorb and eat up all your feelings. This can lead to a lot of arguments, and it often does. Whenever I talk to a lot of INTJs, depending on how they're developed, I end up having a lot of fights with them. Because if their morals are not something that I enjoy, I will start poking them for other types of feelings, because I know you have a lot of feelings. I can feel them all. If you're not going to give me good moral guidance, I am going to poke and prod until I get some emotional satisfaction out of you. So the SE to SI can also be a little bit of a pain point, because while you are insecure about your performance, I am insecure about the performances that I receive from other people. That means that depending on my development as well, if I am particularly picky, and most ENTPs are particularly picky about the performances that they receive, they might block off with their little NI nemesis function. I don't want your experience. I don't want it, because I can see with my NE hero that it is not going to be good. So I am going to prevent it before it happens. And that makes your SE feel really, really bad, because I'm downgrading this, which means I'm also downgrading your choice. And that's not good for either of us, because if I am aware that I'm downgrading your choice, that means my hero function is going to kind of paradoxically try to give you more choices, but also try to cut off this because I do not want that experience. So it can get pretty hectic. Even though we're golden pairs, the worst part about being a golden pair is that you are constantly going to be giving off and taking in energy. So that means that you are going to spiral while gaining energy like a chaotic, hellish, fiery snowball from hell. You're going to just keep getting energized by each other but hating the entire process potentially. So that is it could go really, really well or really, really badly. That is the danger of the golden pairs. But let's talk about your silver pair now. That is a good question, Nero. Also, I have a lot of, oh, my ex is messaging me right now. Let me see. Speak of the devil, he's in the INTP too. So, let's talk about the INTP now. Which, I do not have the female INTP, so you're just gonna have to imagine that the INTP is a female, even though this is a male INTP image. But, here it is. Yeah, let's use this one. So this is the INTP and the INTJ. So the INTP is very similar to the ENTP in functions, but yes, please work your imagination. The INTP is similar to the ENTP in the sense that it has all the same functions and they're pretty much similar in their order because the TI and NE is in very similar spots, and so is the SI and FE. So what you're gonna like a lot more about the INTP to INTJ relationship is that the TI, even though it's a little bit less responsible, is still being used at a very high frequency. So you're going to be willing to take in all of their thoughts very eagerly. And another thing is that the NE parent is very responsible with the future that it's going to give you. So that means that while you're over here irresponsibly conducting a future for yourself, the INTP is high enough frequency to take that kind of willpower. Why can't X's leave ENTPs alone? Well, because higher NI users ignore reality a lot of the time, so they can be pretty delusional. But so can ENTPs, so fair enough. So the NE parent is going to be like, hey, I like your spirit. I like all the things that you are doing. Like, I like all that passion that you have, but let's bring it down to earth just a little bit, because it is possible, but we need to make sure that it's responsible. So that's what the INTP does for the INTJ, and the INTJ really likes that and really respects that, because if you are conducting your desires in a very, very responsible way, that means that you are going to have better execution, and having precise execution with both your NI and SE is going to make you very, very satisfied. The next is SI child. SI child is typically pretty oblivious. It typically does not have a lot of experience under its belt, and it is typically receptive to most experiences. That means it's both naive and optimistic. Whereas with the ESFJ that we were talking about before, they are not going to be too picky, but they are also not going to be too scared like an ENTP. So that means that you are pretty much going to have a pretty good chance at giving them a good experience with your SE inferior. And your SE inferior doesn't need to worry that much about having performance anxiety with the INTP. Another thing that's really, really good about the INTP to INTJ relationship is that they have FE inferior, which means that while sometimes it can be a bad time for them, because when you get all crazy about your emotions, I'm sorry, I'm reading that. While you are getting all crazy about your childish emotions, they are over here like, oh my gosh, you have so many emotions and it's kind of overwhelming me. But if they put in a little more effort into you, and an inferior that loves you definitely will put in a little more effort into you, the FE inferior can turn into a very, very, very responsible and empathetic function. So this is really good for you compared to FE hero, because what you'll find with FE heroes is that when they ask you for feelings, they do it with a FI nemesis slant, which means while they are receiving your emotions, they're also trying to sneak in their morals at the same time. And that's going to feel really manipulative to an FI child, because with every little bit of empathy that they give you, they are also tying a covert contract. That is a lot less likely to happen with a FE inferior, because they have no awareness of their own emotions. It is going to be a lot more unbiased than an FE hero. So overall, this is a pretty good relationship aside from the inferior function for the FE. And sometimes the child function for the INTP can be a little bit demanding. And with anybody from the NT crew, whether you're going with an NTP or an INTP or an ENTP, you're going to enable each other a lot just because you are so synchronous, and it's going to be really tempting to not challenge. It's going to be really tempting to not challenge each other and get into comfort zones. The ESFJ does a lot of covert contracting. Technically, so does the INTP, but ESFJs do it a lot more consciously, and they are a lot less. They're a lot more self-righteous about it than an INTP would be. Yeah, INTPs are a lot more guilty, so they're a lot less likely to do that. And next, I want to bring up the ISFJ, which is going to be your superego pair, which I have not actually seen this pairing that much in Body Temple as the CEO of Covert Contracts. Body Temple, is that the ENTJ, INTP, ISFP, ESFJ? Okay, so this is the SI hero of the Crusaders. And by the way, I would not recommend that you try to get with an ISTJ. I just wouldn't. So this is your SI hero, your ISFJ. So the ISFJ is your superego, and with that, you're going to run into quite a bit of issues. The ISFJ is SI enthusiastic, very enthusiastic about the experiences they receive. They are responsible about the emotions that they take in from other people. They are childish about their own thoughts, and they are insecure about other people's intentions and futures. So, let's go over SI hero to SE inferior. SI hero is very, very well versed in the experiences that it has received in the past. That means that they have very, very high standards. And they are going to nitpick very, very much. These guys are the ones that are neat freaks. They are very, very durable, and they will criticize you for not being as durable as they are. They will say you should be this durable, you should be able to do this. If I can do this, you can do this too. And the good thing about this relationship is that they will push you into having new experiences with them. Bad thing about it is that that kind of borders on SE, and they also use their SE nemesis quite a bit, which means that they are going to be poking at your demon function. Yeah. The next one is FE parent. This means that they are very, very guilty. It also means that they are typically the overlords of social ethics. And they will be the first to call you out with your little child function about how childish you are being with your morality. They will tell you that you are not being righteous and you are not doing the right thing, and they are going to nag, nag, nag. So you're getting nagging from here and nagging from there. This can be a little enthusiastic sometimes, but typically that's also going to mean that they are very, very kinky, especially if they've been around a lot. So next one is TI child, and this is going to pose a problem for them more than you. They are very childish about the way that they think, and you are just going to laugh at them with their very childish thoughts. And you are also going to criticize the fact that they are not at all responsible with the information that they take in, because they have TE Trickster. And what TE Trickster does, where did you get the shotgun at name? It sounds cool to me. Well, basically, NE Hero thinks about possible futures in a trajectory. Like, so this is the way that NI thinks about the future, and this is the way that NE thinks about the future. It's like, NI is like, this is going to happen. NE is like, this might happen, but also 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 that might happen, but also that might happen. So in that way, it's like a shotgun. You have a wide pellet spread. And this one is like a sniper rifle. You have one target, and you are going to hit it. Whereas NE tries to hit all targets. My best friend is an INTJ, but I can only spend so much time with him because his FI drains my FE. Yeah, that makes sense. I have ISTP and an ISTJ roommate. They're my roommates, and they are in a relationship with each other. And when the ISTJ gets emotional, he cannot stop it. And sometimes the ISTP is not in the mood to have to take on his emotions, so she can get pretty overwhelmed. But anyway, how do I change my name to a sniper rifle meme? I don't know. I'm not familiar with memes that much. But let me get back to what I was saying. So TE parent is definitely going to laugh at little TI child over here, because TE trickster is out and about. Whenever TI child is playing, TE trickster sneaks out, and TE trickster is like, oh, anything can be verifiable, anything can be true. You know, I saw a TikTok that told me that whole life insurance was how people get rich, and that's probably true because I have no verification wall. There is no firewall for me to try to curate that. And no, I'm not going to ask for other people's thoughts. I heard one thought, and that's enough thoughts for me. So my TI child is going to take this one little tidbit of information, and I am just going to go through the rabbit hole with my little TI child, because my TI child only needs one statistic, and I can make logic off of that because I'm just that cool. And you're over here with your TI parent is like, That's not how that works. You need a lot more opinions than that because people aren't all equal in the way that they think. And T.I. Child is like, whatever, I'm smart enough to figure it out. And it's like, no, you're not. And that's just not that great for either of you. Next is the NE inferior to NI hero. So, NE inferior. One thing that you need to know about NE inferior is that if you are plotting and you are plotting hardcore, NE inferior all automatically thinks that you are plotting bad things. Whenever it sees people's intentions, especially in high capacities, it is just like, that is a lot of plotting. And that is probably a bad thing. You are probably a bad person. So, and you're also this is way too much an eye for me, and I'm getting scared because you have so much of your future figured out supposedly, and it's probably making me self-conscious about the fact that I have nothing figured out and you are triggering my demon function. So I would not. I mean, it's doable. People have gotten married to their superego relationships. Chase got married to his superego relationship and got divorced. And, the rest is history. Those are not usually great things. So, those are all the Crusaders. Can anyone answer me why TIGL tends to believe in nonsense people say more easily than when I present to them with a lot of research and angles to prove them to something? Because when TI Child gets going, they don't want to rely on... So TI Child prides itself on being the smartest person ever. Like, low-key. They just... The way that the child function works is it just likes to go and go and go and go and go. If it has to, like, stop and take in all these sources, which it's not good at doing anyway, it's going to be like, I don't want to slow down for all those thoughts. I got my own thoughts. And it just keeps going and going and going. But every now and then it'll be like, maybe I'm not that cool. Maybe I'll take, like, one thought, and then I'll go and go and go with that little thought, and I'll turn it into, like, a really harebrained rabbit hole kind of theory. And that's all it needs. That's kind of how TI Child works. Oh yeah, and to go off of this, yeah, the ESFJ is going to be probably most manipulative feeling to you, like I said before. And yeah, I pretty much covered the ESFJ pretty well. So that's all the Crusader types. Let's also move on to your second most compatible quadro, which is the philosopher types. So let's start with your pedagogue, which is the ENFP. This is the ENFP. This is the type that I was obsessed with because I thought that I was at one point. I at one point thought that I was an ENFP, but I am not an ENFP. Why does that ESFJ drawing crack you up? So the ENFPs are going to be similar to your ENTP golden pair with a few key differences. Like an ENTP, they are NE hero, so they are enthusiastic about your future, and they are SI inferior, which means that they are very, very insecure about their experiences that they receive from other people. A big difference, though, is that they are TE child, which means that they are very childish about the thoughts that they take in, and they are very, very responsible with their morality, which means when they are developing their morality, they basically use it as their primary defense mechanism against people. So, like an ENTP, she's very enthusiastic about the things that you are plotting for the future. So she will be like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. We can make when we can make your future happen. I am all for everything that you are saying right now. But the bad thing about this is she is not giving you any logic for how you are going to achieve your future because she is TE child. she is going to ask you probably for your qualifications in the future that you are going to receive, in the future that you are going to try to make for yourself. I'm glad, Brian. I'm glad that you are good. Or how do I say it? I'm glad that you are happy with the decision that you made. So, TE Child, the way that TE Child works is they have absolutely no logic of their own, or rather they do, but they are not actively generating it. They would rather rely on their taking in other people's thoughts because it brings them lots and lots of joy. And a good thing about this is that you are probably going to relate to getting joy from taking in other people's thoughts. But you are not going to get any thoughts from her because she's the eye trickster. She's going to give you other people's thoughts, which can be a really good thing. And you are going to teach her how to think more responsibly, which is going to help her develop her ISTJ subconscious, which is really good for her because people love to develop their subconsciouses. It makes them really inspired, so that's a good thing. And at the same token, she's going to give you a very responsible version of morality, which might inspire you to develop your ESFP subconscious, which has FI parent, like an ENFP. The bad thing about this is that from a male to female perspective, women do not typically develop their parent functions as much as their male counterparts. And the reason that is because this is a survival function and women are pretty well taken care of. So they don't need to develop their survival function as much as men do. So that might be a little lacking. So what might end up happening instead of that is that she's going to say, I don't like the way that you're feeling. I think it's very stupid the way that you're feeling. I think that your feelings are not good enough for me to take in. So I'm not even going to bother empathizing with you because that feeling is giving me a bad experience. So I do not want the experience that you're giving me. I do not want to pay any attention to you because you are making me feel bad. You are making me feel bad, and I will not let you make me feel bad because I am responsible with the way that I feel. And she might just stonewall you. But pedagogues are very good for development for the reasons that I talked about before. It can help you develop your subconscious, and it can also help you develop your lower functions so that you are not as much of an enabling situation, enabling relationship as an INTP or an ENTP. Is it me, or when ENXPs are UDUF, they can be very picky, but when they are SDF, they can adapt to almost anything? Oh yeah, that is very true. I am a very, very, very durable version of an ENTP. You won't find me complaining much about having to do things or being obligated to do things. I will try to overachieve with any kind of task that I'm made to endure. So that's the ENFP. It can be very good for growth. And it's also a very... Okay, so the good things about this. Bad things are very emotional. Very emotional. And the good thing, or the next con is very... How do I say this? No, that's pretty much it. It's a very emotional. But the pros are you have maximum sexual compatibility, like the ENTP, and You will feel like partners in crime because you have relatable emotional functions. And you will have great sex. And the emotional conflict will make it so that there is really high sexual tension. Yeah, pretty much. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Ooh, I don't even know how this is gonna work. I haven't even like really explored this, but this is the ESTJ. But I've never seen this before, but let's think about this from a theoretical perspective. So the ESTJ is, oh boy. ESTJ is TE hero, very enthusiastic about the thoughts that she takes in, very, very responsible with the experience that she receives from other people. Very, ooh, this is gonna suck. Very childish about other people's intentions, and very insecure about her own emotions and morality. So, one thing that you automatically need to know about an ESTJ is she's very, very, very insecure about feeling like a bad person. And she's not insecure about feeling like a bad person like an FE user would be insecure about feeling like a bad person. If you accuse an ESTJ of feeling like of being a bad person, she will rage and she will be very, very manipulative towards you. She will be very unempathetic and she will lock down and she will FE demon you. And that is not going to be pretty. And it's especially not going to be pretty for your FI child, because your FI child is completely oblivious to what other people are feeling. So you might be stepping on her inferior function and not even know it, because your FE trickster has no idea what anybody is feeling. So that's the first obstacle. First con. FE demon. The next one. Would I, as an SI optimistic, have better chances to please another SI optimistic or to a SI pessimistic? I would say if you are going to... I know SI to SI is a bad idea, but I'm just curious. I think you would have a better chance with another SI optimistic just because their SE is high enough to the point where it's the fifth function, so they might bring it out for you. But yeah, it's not going to be pretty. It'll get by well enough unless you have other memories of like SE users giving you a better time, then you're gonna probably want to cheat on them. Yeah, that's true. That is very true about FE Demon. It is very authentic. Next one is NE Child. The thing that you are not going to like about NE Child with your TE parent is that any child is so childishly enthusiastic about the future that you have that you are going to be plotting all these things and wondering if you're making the right moves while looking at their little NE profit function and NE options function, and you'll just be like, that's way too many options and probably not that realistic and probably not going to get me to my goal fast enough, because you are a triple movement type. And you want to move fast and you want to be as efficient as possible. And while the ESTJ is a systematic type. They are very good at systems. That does not mean that they are disciplined enough to get you to that future. And they're definitely not speedy enough to get you to that future. And they're definitely not creative enough to get you to that future. Because they rely on their concreteness and other people's thoughts. What you're going to see a lot with ESTJs is that they are very set in the norm. And they are very much about outcome, which means that they will not budge until the setup is just right. Also, another thing is that they are SI parent, which, same as the ESFJ, they are going to demand a good experience from you because the parent is responsible with the experiences that they receive. If there's any chance that you will give them a bad experience, they are definitely, with their little FE demon, FI inferior combination, going to berate you about it, and they are going to be very ruthless, and they are not going to give you any empathy, and they are also likely not going to give you any sympathy. Not that that would matter, because, well, maybe, actually that might give you some sympathy, but it'll be a little bit of sympathy. Mini sympathy. And you are not going to even pick up on it, because you have a FE trickster and you're not going to notice if they have sympathy for you. And the TE hero I haven't really even gotten to, but basically the TE hero is very enthusiastic about the thoughts that they take in, and they're going to be like, wow, you're really smart. You really, they're going to say, you're really smart, but what you really done is study. And it's going to poke you in the TI critic, because you always are critical about the thoughts that you create. You're saying, I am not an original thinker. And TE hero is saying, you are so smart. So you get in this loop of, you are so smart, and it constantly reminds you, I am not an original thinker. I got these thoughts from somebody else. And that makes you feel incompetent. And then you are not going to want to perform for very demanding SI parent. So I don't think this would be a good relationship. It definitely doesn't seem like one on paper. Okay, let's see. Who else do we got? INFP. Benefactor. Can hanging around with someone that puts you really deep in your unconscious start making you feel unmotivated for things? It really depends on how you want to think about it. Like, if you are very, very dead set on developing your unconscious, you will probably keep being around that person. But if you're not, you might not want to be around that person. Okay, so this is the INFP. This is your benefactor. Let's see how this plays out for you. Because I know that I love my benefactor. I've heard good things about this relationship, but let's see how it works in the function theory. This is the INFP. INFP is good for you because it is very close to the pedagogue function, pedagogue in the way that the perception functions line up. And let's see, so they are NESI, FI, TE. So the INFP is going to be your typical cute little, very high-pitched, soft-voiced girl. And just imagine this is a girl. This is the guy variation, but just imagine that it's a girl. Let me see. So, The one thing that you're going to notice is that they are very enthusiastic about the way that they feel. But the good thing about this is while they are very enthusiastic about the way that they feel, they're always also constantly worried about how other people feel. Because they have FE Nemesis. Which means that the FE Nemesis will often try to play to your emotions as well. INFP women are anime women. Yeah, they're ugu women. So the good thing about that is that you will always be helping them develop their empathy. That is the first thing. You're also going to notice that they are very entitled because FI demands it. They are also interest-based. So you are going to see them as definitely manipulative, but at the same time, you're going to see them as authentic. And thinkers like authentic people. Depending on what stage they are in their life, they can be pretty inauthentic, but if they are trying to develop their shadow functions, it will be better for you. But you are not going to like how emotional they are. And a lot of what they do isn't going to make sense to you because you have FA Trickster. So they are going to get emotional sometimes, and you're not going to be able to see it coming because their hero function is always on, and it's going to go right over your head. So that's a minus. I'm not going to be able to get all through this. Oh my god, I only got a little bit of line art done. But, shoot. Okay, so I'm just going to try to race through this. Any parent is going to be really good for your NI in the same way that the any parent of the INTP is good for your NI. And it's going to come from a more interest-based place. Which means that if you're interested in power dynamics, the INFP can definitely help you out. If you're trying to climb it's okay. I like doing this too. If you are interested in climbing a social hierarchy, the INFP would definitely help you out with that. And so would the ENFP, honestly. They're also going to have really enthusiastic SI for your SE. Well, I only have 1 minute left, so at this point, I might as well finish this up. And their TE inferior is probably going to grow a lot from your TE parent. The good thing about the TE inferior, the parent to inferior dynamic is that they can lead each other, and the TE parent, especially if you're in a sexual relationship, will teach the TE inferior how to take in more TE in a very, very responsible way. And the way that you use your TE parent is going to make the INFP love you more because it'll be very, very secure in the way that it now utilizes its inferior function. So, yeah. Power couple is one of my fans. Yeah, I honestly think that the pedagogue and the benefactor are very much a power couple. Like, I definitely feel like a power couple with my ENFJs. They feel pretty good. But yeah, so I gave you a lot of options of how your pairings would work up for an INTJ specifically. So just go over those, and whatever dynamic you think works for you will depend on the way that you were nurtured and the way that you developed. So just go from there. It's not going to be the same for everybody. It just depends on what you want. No, do not save that. Do not save that. Yes, save this. And I'm pretty much just doing line art right now, so Yeah. It was good talking with you guys. Thanks for joining my stream. I hope you'll have a good night.